Scotty, beam me up.
Oh. Smash. Get over here.
It is pointless to resist.
All right. Welcome to the Geek Den. We are here with Order of the Fly tonight, and we are excited about this one. You guys have a history. You know, I grew up in the Redland scene, so like 2003 when you guys were like thriving was pretty wild for me. I have some pretty good memories. You know, people getting fly tattoos on their stomachs and everything. It was a wild time, a good time.
That was definitely good times. It's still good, but I think it's most of those kids are all grown up now, but that was definitely the
it was definitely good times. So why don't you guys give us a little history on you guys?
Yeah. Go ahead, Ralph.
All right. Just we've been around about like 20 years. We started a long time ago, like you were saying, back in like 2003 and stuff. We were based out of San Bernardino. The band lineup has like kind of evolved over the years, but we stuck it out and stuck together, and it's sort of like it's like a passion and a hobby and something that some people are into collecting dirt bikes and going to the desert or buying a boat or whatever, and it's kind of like, this is ours.
Yeah.
And so we put out I think we've got like 5 or 6 records now. We just came out with one last year, and we're working on a new one. And the lineup of the band now is kind of, it's sort of, there's a bunch of different personalities, so it takes a while to find the people that you can click with. But we've had the same lineup now, I think, going on like 11 years, 10 years, something like that. So we definitely are all like, this is sort of the band. And it's just so, we've kind of spread out a little bit. We're no longer living in San Bernardino, but we still have our rehearsal space, recording studio down there. So it's kind of like our home base. But yeah, man, just still doing it.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I know how hard it is to keep a band together for 1 year, let alone 10. So
yeah, for real. Like I always tell people, it's
congratulations for that, for real.
Yeah, it's like 5 separate marriages,
right.
And if anytime 2 of them aren't working out, it's like the whole thing falls apart. You got to have everybody that can get along. That's the most important part of it.
Yeah, but the way you guys do mix it is, incredible. There's like thrash and like synth and everything you can imagine is all mixed into one, and it sounds so good together.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's like a mixed bag. We all have a ton of different influences, so it all kind of filters through the music.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you definitely, like, I was listening to your first album yesterday, and it definitely reminded me of the scene when I was growing up. Like, I was like my formative years. I was like 13, 14 around that time, and I was just like, all right, yeah, I would have definitely been in the pit at that show, in the garage, wherever the fuck we were.
Yeah.
The time garages. Yeah. Backyard.
It just gave me that warm. It just gave me that warm, fuzzy, nostalgic feeling that everybody loves.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
And that's how it was for me. I used to go see Order of the Fly play shows. I've been in the band for almost 13 years now, I think. And I used to go to Showcase in Corona and watch them play. And it's pretty cool to stand up next to these old dudes now.
Sure,
you're no spring chicken yourself anymore, buddy.
That's facts right there.
I'm getting there. Time
I think
waits for no man.
I think we're all reaching those gates now. Every last one of us on here.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Sure.
I dig it. I don't care. I used to like dread being old until I was about 30, and then after that, now I just like it more and more. The older I
Yeah.
get, the more world gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually.
I stand on the sidelines to watch it.
So what would you say between the two of you, like your driving influences are? Like, you said there's a ton, but like what really brought you to music, Not even the punk scene, just like music in general.
I could give you a specific example, or I know for sure what made me into music was when I was like probably 7 or 8 years old, 6 or 7 years old. I had a record, like an old record player, and I had a few records that I liked, but I liked the melodies and stuff. But I remember very, very vividly, I was living in Chicago at the time, and my aunt came to visit. She was like my hip, cool young aunt, and she was like jogging and stuff, and she had a Walkman, like a cassette Walkman.
Yeah.
And I never heard anything in stereo before, so she was going out the door to jog or whatever, and I asked her what that was, and she's like, "Oh, it's Walkman." She put the headphones on, and it was the Flashdance, was it the Maniac song by whoever did that song? But it was the first time I heard stereo and like the headphones, and it was like my whole brain like exploded. It was like I was like inside the music. But ever since that, like I can still remember it. That was like what made me just like ever since that point on, I was like obsessed with it.
Yeah. No, I have just as vivid memories of getting into music, so that's awesome. Like mine was Poison. Glam metal was like my intro into like, oh my god, I love this whole lifestyle. Like, and ever since then, I don't think I ever turned back once.
Hell yeah. And then Kiss. I mean, visually, definitely Kiss and Alice Cooper. Those two things.
I was just about to say, for me, it was a cassette tape my uncle showed me of Gene Simmons spitting out blood, and I was just like,
"That's rad.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. I need to see more of this."
Yeah.
When I was even younger, like I lived in this apartment complex in Milwaukee, and like when my mom would work, I'd go like get babysat by the neighbor kids, like all the people in the apartment knew each other. But one of the kids that would babysit me, he had a giant Gene Simmons poster on his wall, and he would tell me all like the legends, like, oh yeah, he's like grafted a cow tongue to his tongue, and and he said like when you throw picks out in the audience, they're like razor sharp, and they'll like cut your fingertips off. And I totally thought it was true. Like in his boots would like eat your hands if they were on the stage.
Yeah.
It's like kind of half scary, half superheroic. So definitely visually. Before I even heard the music, I think it was like years later before, because my mom wouldn't let me listen to them. That influence.
Yeah.
So, as a big comic book fan and a fantasy fan, as you can see, I love a good origin story. So, could you tell us how you arrived at the Order of the Fly?
Like the name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I used to kind of like evade that question because I didn't want to be like seen being overly satanic or whatever. But so basically, where it came from. Well, I always wanted to do like theatric bands. Like the only bands that ever like really interested me always have like a theatric element, like Alice Cooper, Guar, Misfits, Kiss. I like that thing. So I knew I always wanted to do that. And it's hard to find people that are willing to go along with it, as Tom can attest. You have to find someone that's like willing to look like a weirdo. But the name came from the name's actually, so it's I love like mythology, and I like especially like all kinds of mythology, including like Christian mythology and stuff. And like there's an old book that was at the college library I was at, and it was like an encyclopedia of demons, and so I used to go through it all the time. It was really cool, and anyways, it sort of goes into, it's sort of like post Milton, like Paradise Lost, kind of cataloging all these like different demons. It's like a demon, and it's, I don't know when the book dated from. It, definitely like late Middle Ages, but they talk about the host, the heavenly host of like different like seraphim and all these like knightly orders that they have in heaven. But there's only one knightly order in hell from the fallen angels, and it's the Beelzebub's, like, because Beelzebub was sort of the lieutenant to Lucifer when they both rose up against God, as the myths and stuff. And so then they were like the first rebels that stood up to like the ultimate authority out of hubris or whatever. So I always thought that was kind of cool. And they were the Order of the Flying. Beelzebub is the Lord of the Flying.
Damn.
So I read it. I was like, yes, these are my people. Not like I'm a Satanist.
I think he
just
finally
like
got
to
impressed on an origin story. Wow, he was like, you don't get that reaction from him very much.
No, never.
No.
History, classics, mythology, sploosh. Oh, I roll, man.
We have a happy Canadian on the Geek family.
So you guys, we know like visually, you guys are in tech, but do your characters like, do they each have a backstory, or is it kind of just like your own creation?
That's good. That's interesting. We kind of played with that a little bit. I wish I had a couple of copies. I used to make like a little zine, and it had like comics and stuff in it. And I didn't want to be fully like Kiss, where it's like the Demon, the Catman, the Starchild, but I kind of like. I guess each one kind of has like a bit of a basis, but nothing that was like intentional. Just sort of whatever. Nobody like told someone what to draw their face up like or whatever. We all just kind of did our own thing, and then some once you see it kind of like looks like something else. And like lately with Tom, the thing I'm thinking of Tom just because he's such a huge like Swamp Thing fan, and we've had like I'm sort of like a Frankenstein guy. Jason's kind of like a alien or robot or something, and then Abby, she's sort of like a zombie or vampire or something. I guess nobody's really like one set thing, but Tom, I want to make and Tom's our swamp monster now.
I myself, it's all about the creature from the Black Lagoon for me.
Oh, hell yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my favorite Universal monster.
Yeah, I think probably mine too. That one and Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Those are the two.
I just go with Dracula. There's nothing like Bela Lugosi to me.
That's true. He's great.
I bid
I
you
like
welcome.
The children of the night. With music.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with accent.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I think so. My lovely girlfriend just brought me. So this is like a example of our old zines. Here, I'll show you.
Wow, that looks like the old EC comics, dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
But they had, so in this one, what was the storyline? It was like, we played this shitty country bar by accident. So it's sort of like us getting booed off the stage and then getting revenge by like killing everybody.
That's rad. I love that.
Let's see if there's another one in here. Yeah, this is like way old. There's one of me just like digging graves.
Blues Brothers story. That's fucking badass.
Yeah. It was based on like a sort of a real event. We got booked somehow at a place called In Cahoots, which already I should have known. It was like a country bar. I don't even know why anybody asked us to play there, but the crowd clearly was not like into that at all. It was like, and then everybody else came, hats and boots, and they were ready to do line dancing, and we went like a lead balloon.
Book of the Eagles Club or something.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. This one might be better. This was a very
What in tarnation?
It wasn't bad.
But it was definitely that Blues Brothers. We just didn't know how to play raw at it even, so we were screwed.
I think that fits in with Wildest Show story.
Awesome. Holy shit. Oh,
So thanks for having us, by the way. I just wanted to say
Yeah.
because that was cool. I've been checking out ever since Tom told me about it. I started watching some of the videos and stuff. Very cool, I think.
Yeah, we try. We try and give comedy gold and all the best. So
we do our goddamnedest.
yep. So what about you guys? You got any recording or anything coming up?
Yeah, we're actually almost done with the drums. We came out with one album just before COVID hit, and then the weird COVID year.
Nice.
Yeah.
We couldn't do anything else, so I started trying to write as much as I could. And Danny, our drummer, he's been
So fucking awesome.
yeah, he's been pretty good. He's knocked out like I think done with 10 songs. We have 12, so we're gonna finish. We were gonna finish one today, but he got the COVID shot and couldn't do it, so he's dying. But hopefully he'll feel better tomorrow, and we'll do it tomorrow and the next day. And then it's time for me and Tom to lay down our parts.
Yeah.
Be done in a few months.
Awesome.
I know I'll be adding that to my collection.
Yeah.
Better.
With everything opening up, have you guys done any live shows?
Say again?
With everything opening up, have you done any live shows?
Yeah, we played a couple. We played like in Arizona, and we played in LA, and we're about to play Washington next weekend after this.
On the 21st.
21st. Which is going to be cool. It's my first event, and we're flying. I don't think I've no, like when I played in Jersey, we flew there, but this is the first time I can remember where all of us are going to fly to the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
The journey's there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully, I don't know. It seems like I got bad vibes. Feel like the whole country's about to go on lockdown again. So just crossing my fingers.
Yeah. Do you get out on a lot of like national tours, or are you basically just like West Coast, or?
Probably mostly West Coast. It's just the problem with like the West versus the East is it's like you've got like the West Coast and then like, you know, Arizona and stuff like that. But then in between there and like the East Coast is just like miles of expanse of land with like one little city in between. So trying to drive that is like impossible. If you live on the West Coast, you can hit like 10 states in like 10 days. But here, you're driving for hundreds of miles. So we pretty much, you know, logistically can only keep it to this side unless we had a whole, like Tom booked like almost like a whole nationwide tour right before COVID thing knocked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we made it out.
June and July, I think, of 2020, and I had everything booked out in March, and we got the word everything was shutting down and being canceled like right afterwards.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, it really put a strain on everybody. Especially artists. Like I think they suffered like the most out of everyone. Honestly, like
I tell you what though, I really expanded my record collection.
Yeah. I bought a lot of T-shirts along the way.
Everything I could to support the bands that I love.
Yeah,
sort of did the same thing. It was good and bad. I guess it was kind of an interesting. I try to look at the positive side. I guess, you know, it did.
Yeah.
It sucked for that, but it shook everything up and made everything, you know, made you kind of appreciate being able to go to shows. You know, instead of it now, it's like a treat instead of it just being like, I don't really feel like going out. Now it's just like something exciting again.
Yeah,
for sure. But like the lack of concerts though has provided a lot of new music from those bands.
Yeah, we've been thriving on lots of good music.
More stuff, you know, and it's really good shit that I've been hearing.
Yeah. I know. I feel it's like sort of force people, like if you can't go out, might as well just try to work on some new stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Everybody's got a good record coming out. It's gonna be a good year for me.
Stuff coming.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to all of it. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. So why don't we take
what's the round robin? What do you guys is the best sort of musical genre?
Oh man, varied. I can go from like anything. I can go from like metal to punk to even like alternative country within who knows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, music's been my life since I don't even know how long. It started with Poison and it went from there.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you exactly where music started for me. I just know it's always been in my life. Like there's always been music playing somewhere. My mom listens to a lot of gospel shit.
Cool. I mean, yeah, it's just cool that's like an interesting influence. You know?
Country, but she does like she likes a lot of older country stuff like Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard stuff.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of that. A lot of old punk, a lot of metal.
Yeah.
Mainly like thrash oriented stuff. I like a lot of that shit. Like Anthrax. You guys are a new addition to that list. I really dig your sound.
Yeah. I think punk opened up my eyes the most, honestly, to everything going on like musically. Like I was into music, but I think punk rock really opened up my eyes to, oh my God, there's all these different cultures and types of everything.
Yeah.
And like I fit in somewhere, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's like our
I
through
definitely-
line for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think that was the appeal of it too. I think it was sort of like music for the people, you know, it wasn't like rock stars way up on stages that you'll never meet. It was like your
Yep.
buddy.
Yep.
And,
It's literally music for people who want to hear it.
yeah.
Nobody gives a
People-
shit what it's like. Just come along.
Very egalitarian.
Yeah.
Somebody falls down, you pick them the fuck up.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. The rules
Yeah.
of the pit, man.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, that's the same thing, same as me. That's what made me like, my mind was blown when I first started going to shows like that. I was like a big like athletic kid, so I
Yeah.
loved moshing. But I like the brotherhood and the camaraderie of it all. It wasn't like
Yeah.
malicious. It was just kind of like playing football or something. We bump into each other, but you don't want to.
Yeah,
It looks
exactly.
more violent.
You're not trying to hurt each other. You just, bumping shoulders and shit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fun.
I always loved it.
Yeah, we really come from everywhere. There's Mage and his Hamilton soundtrack, and
Yeah. See, I just like everyone else. Music's been huge to me too. I'm the old man of the group, and I grew up. I remember the very first album I owned was the Cocktail soundtrack, and it was just a bunch of lame '80s shit. But my parents, the two things that they were really liberal about were movies and music, and I grew up on Dr. Hook and Johnny Cash and everything. And then if I found something on my own, my parents never ever, they wouldn't take an album away or prevent me from listening. So I listened to absolutely everything. And I started with punk, but I didn't really get it until I listened to like political metal, like Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down and that. And then it started clicking, and then I got into actually good music.
Cool.
Not just that box top 40 horse shit.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. I remember when I was a kid and I stole my brother's Metallica Black album out of his room, not knowing what it was, and then I listened to it and I was like, whoa. And then it like led me into all of the like melodic death metal and stuff that I listen to now that I probably would never have found, or at least taken me a lot longer to find if I didn't find that. So
yeah.
Joseph.
Oh
what about
yeah. Oh well, for me it was when I was a little kid. I actually thought about this again the other night. Like I remember hearing it was a Def Leppard record. Actually, a Def Leppard and what was it? Judas Priest. Def Leppard's Excitable and Judas Priest's Turbo Lover. That's what got me interested. Like, whoa, what's this? This is heavy music. And then I watched the movie Major League, and I got totally enamored with Joan Jett and Lita Ford singing Wild Thing when they were in the Runaways. And that got me further, like, there's something here. And then I was totally, like into that 90s country stuff, Garth and whatnot. And then in 1993, this video came on MTV where these snotty punk kids were playing punk rock in a insane asylum. And it was a little song called Basket Case. And James and I have kind of the same origin story. That was like, that's what kind of cemented the deal.
I think the
right
three
there.
of us
Like,
too.
Oh
that?
yeah,
That was my
me, you,
introduction.
yeah.
Yep.
Dookie just kind of like, here I am.
I think Dookie changed a lot of lives, in all honesty.
did.
Like there's a lot of stories that come out of Dookie. Like
Yeah, I think that album definitely, because I remember, I'm like probably a little older than you guys, but I remember when it came out, just being like, holy crap, like punk is like popular again, even though it probably had really only been like 3 or 4 years I'd left high school. It's still that period of time feels like ages, so it felt like I just thought it was over because I left high school, so all of a sudden that must have like died at the same time. But then when I heard that, I was like, oh, this is sick. And then it's like on the radio, which would never have happened before, and it was cool. It just made this like it brought like millions more people into something.
Yeah.
Totally a gateway for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, how Nirvana did that like a few years before, or like I guess the Offspring or something. There's always like these bands that brought it to. I was never a big Nirvana guy, but it's like undeniable, like the impact the band had.
Yeah, they brought a lot of change.
They definitely,
especially for somebody like Poison, you probably hate those guys because they like basically
I was
erased.
just about to say they definitely the hair metal era.
Yeah. I was like 5 when I was into Poison, so like I actually like as rock music evolved, I evolved with it, and I was lucky enough to be like part of the Nirvana generation and everything. Even though I was a little younger, I still got that whole experience. So
it was definitely like it was like the last time I can remember the culture really being maybe it's just because I was like in high school at the time, but that people were like, maybe kids still are, but I don't see it the same way, where it seems like broadly like almost everybody is listening to the same stuff. Radio really has like a lot of power over that. MTV had a lot of power, so it was like a light switch in my high school. All the girls that were wearing like Poison shirts and Motley Crue shirts and teasing their hair up and stuff, like it was like one weekend you go home and you come back the next time they're wearing like flannel and their hair's down and they stop wearing makeup.
Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like a light switch.
Yeah.
I came, like, I'm the baby of this group. I'm only 33, so I was way young when Dookie even came out. So like, when I tell people I listen to the music I listen to, they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, listen. I had a lot of relatives that listen to a lot of different shit."
Yep.
Cool. That's the cool thing about records. It's like I listen to stuff that was 4 hours
and if
alive.
you look at my record collection, you can see that's what I like. It's the same shit I grew up listening to, and it's I love it.
If you're not dedicating some of your life to ABBA, you've done something wrong. So
exactly. There's a time and place for that. Well, like my new jam, like now pretty much almost all I listen to. Well, I've been on like a kick of other stuff, but for the past few years, like I've been like obsessed with like synthwave, which is very, it's pretty far from punk or metal as you can get.
Yeah.
It's this cool new like genre that kind of popped up out of nowhere to me, and when I discovered it, I was like, oh my god, this is awesome! And it's got a very like 80s retro feel, kind of nostalgic, kind of looking great.
Some of that stuff's pretty damn cool, man.
Yeah,
I think so.
Sure.
Yeah, it's cool. You always got to like find new stuff that interests you. Can't be.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I still love the stuff I always loved as a 16-year-old, but I'm always trying to still find something that's new and.
100%.
Yeah, it's got to be a revolving door or I lose interest,
I'm always open to new stuff, but like most of the time when I'm on my way to work, it's stuff that I've heard millions of times over.
Yeah, I know, me too. There's 5 records to listen to count like thousands of times.
Yeah,
I'll always go back to them. I'll be 80 years old and still listen to them. But
it doesn't matter. It just depends on my mood, what it is.
Yeah.
But why don't we go ahead and take a quick break? But before we do, I have a trivia question.
Ooh.
Yeah,
it's horror trivia, given the theme of the band and everything around it. So, in what movie does someone get hit in the face with an axe while listening to "Hip to Be Square"?
American Psycho.
Very good.
Wait, what'd you say?
American Psycho.
Damn.
Good old Patrick Bateman.
Dude.
He didn't even wait.
My man knew that right off the bat.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just had a stroke. That was so fast.
That was awesome, dude.
His early stuff was a little too new wave for my taste. But it wasn't until Sports where he really got the commercial sheen.
Yeah.
Talks about the pleasure of his friend.
Go to commercial is going to recite the movie.
All right, we'll be right back.
Now relive the magical adventures of the movie Willow with these amazing characters that bring the story to life. There's the heroic swordsman Matt Mardigan.
Oh, and this war for you?
The evil sorceress Beth Morda. The dreaded General Cave.
I'll crush the rebels!
And brave Willow himself. the epic battles, good versus evil. You can bring the magic of Willow home with collectible figures, vehicles, and accessories, each sold separately. Willow, the magic lies within.
Nerf flying comes with a different skin, so it's easier to catch and throw. Hey, you want hot hands? You got hot hands.
Catch the 2 hot new Nerf flying colors and catch this.
Okay, guys, let's.
You need a move. You need a hand. Got to be a man. This is Nerf flag football. It's tougher than touch.
And we're back.
We are here with Order of the Fly,
Yeah.
and we are going to talk comics.
Oh yeah.
Joe, you got
Now
the show on.
it's just time to shine. Time for show and tell.
Dance, puppet! Dance!
Dance, monkey, dance. Okay, I will. Well, anyway, gentlemen, I figured you might start with something along these lines. Anybody familiar with this little crossover from back in the day?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Batman versus Predator, one of the greatest comic book crossovers ever, and I got all 3 of them. They've done subsequent crossovers with DC and Dark Horse characters. Sadly, Aliens and Predator both now being published by Marvel because when Disney bought Fox, they got all that shit too. They published.
So wait, are you telling me
House owns all.
the next Predator movie is going to be Disney?
Oh yeah.
I'm telling you that the Alien Queen is now a Disney princess.
Yeah.
That's fucking. That's
Disney's not gonna stop doing everything.
You're welcome.
Eventually, though, Disney will just buy DC too, so then you'll be able to have.
They're going to own everything.
They had the chance to do that in the 80s, and then the bigwigs at Marvel were like, nah. It's like,
But it's gonna happen. I mean,
eventually, yeah.
It's coming off DC pretty soon, and so Disney's absolutely gonna jump on that.
You're right, dude. And Disney's got the scratch to throw at Congress to look the other way on antitrust. So there you go.
I don't ever mess with them. Yeah, they're just like the evil corporation that owns everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that brings up the inevitable question: Marvel or DC?
Indie.
Solid answer.
I like both. When I was little, I mean, I don't really read too much like as far as Marvel and DC now, but growing up, both. I never had like any sort of allegiance. I guess kind of maybe a little more Marvel, but I'd buy both. I was never like one or the other.
Yeah.
Everything, whatever I could get with my allowance.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Comic was a comic.
Yep.
Yeah. I grew up in that day. Comic stores too, you know, where comics were like literally everywhere. Like you go to 7-Eleven, there are comics. You go to the superstore, drugstore, gas station.
Yeah, you could literally find every.
Yeah, it was just like ubiquitous. And then comic stores, as cool as they were, the switch to direct market sales kind of. I think it would really squish the I don't know, access to comics. You had to already be into comics to walk into a comic shop. Whereas in the old days, it was just what parents would buy their kids to keep you quiet in the back road trip or something.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think it's coming back.
Like everything
manga
became video game stores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same kind of idea.
Yeah.
I think, it's just like cheap entertainment for kids. And I think the American comic industry is going to kind of disappear in the next 5 years probably, but manga is like enormous and exploding. And I work in my regular job, I'm a teacher, so I work with teenagers, and I've always been like a massive comic fan. I've even made my own comics, but not one kid I've ever taught reads comics, but they all read manga. Yeah, so it's still comics, it's not Western comics.
Yeah. Like Western comics are like a dying art almost.
You just blew my mind telling us that you're a teacher. That's
yeah, I know.
Trying to picture you like
teaching class in full costume. That'd be cool.
Holy,
you know, nice suit and tie, man. I'm like, it's like a totally different world.
Yeah.
Look how many identities.
Think about it. There's only 5 members of the band, and 4 of them are in the education system, and I work for the government in a water district. So
Yeah,
Oh, that's
true, right?
awesome.
Yeah, we have three full-time teachers.
Yeah, we have a buddy,
Teaching-
Brian. He works for the water
Awesome.
district in his area, so
That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah. Oh, Goodrich. Yeah, he's over in Medford, Oregon.
Yeah.
he works for the water
Shout
authority.
out, Brian. How you doing?
And actually, I'm going to school to be a teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
Matt's going to school to be a teacher. Yeah. He's got a 4.0. Almost.
So far,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Right. Yeah.
What subject are you gonna do?
social studies.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
Matt's
I'm
over
a
history.
huge history
Yeah.
dork.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
me too. I love history. If I did English, I'm English, but if it was either English, really would love to be an art teacher because that was what my undergrad was in, but it's like a high school has 1 art teacher and like 9 English teachers, so I figured the odds were more in my favor if I did English. But history is the other subject that I would love to teach. I always kind of peppered it a little.
I started in English and I struggled with the format of papers real bad. And when I saw history was available, I was like, yeah, I'm out. Chicago is remedial, just like me. That's how I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been that great with that either. But luckily there's like Purdue OWL, which formats everything for you. You can just go on their website, fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big jump in experience. When I started in university, you just had to like look at what you had and then look at a right one and be like, you know, figure it out. Now you just plug everything into a computer, beep boop, done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Joe was also-
And it really isn't, but I'm so old that it is. It's like sorcery.
No, I feel in high school, like the internet wasn't even a thing when I was in high school. So you'd have like little manuals of like the MLA format of how to like,
Yeah.
And I was a terrible high school student, but
Yeah, in high school, a book of style was a literal book of style. Like you held it in your hand.
Yeah. So, cool.
It's nice to have someone to relate to.
Joe, what else you got there, bud?
Oh, I have this little Silver Age ditty. It's the Black Knight. It's actually the origin story of the Black Knight. Not his first appearance, but
Very nice.
all his backstory. Yes, and
Well, I have to say, not Silver Age. That is Bronze Age.
ooh, yeah.
Silver Age is like really like the 63 to early 70s. Probably like 75.
72 or 73.
Yeah.
We're not being those guys, but like we're gonna be.
No, sorry.
That's fine, dude. That's fine. I don't.
We all need a kick in the ass.
No, we all love learning here. Like
Exactly. I don't profess to know everything about comics. I just love comics. And if I could learn something about comics, like from a fellow nerd and fan, like, lay it on me, dude. And then, of course, I got this.
First appearance of the black suit. Well, actually, I think it had appeared before that, but that's the origin. I used to have that, and then it got like super water damaged, and it was before I had any idea that anything would be worth money. That comic is worth so much money right now. Yeah,
I know. It's technically the first appearance of Venom.
Yeah.
If you want,
Yeah.
But yeah. And actually, you want to know a little tidbit of history? You know who designed that costume?
Who?
A fan, just a kid. Jim Shooter at the time, the editor-in-chief of Marvel, was looking for like some random kid just like sent in a letter with like a costume redesign. He loved it.
Wow.
And bought it off the kid. I don't know for how much, but yeah, they changed a few things, but essentially, yeah, no, definitely not enough. But yeah, it was like, I mean, how awesome is that? You're like a 15-year-old kid. And you just
Yeah.
redesign. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, I think it was like unsolicited too. I think it was, I don't know if they asked for it or what, but I know that it was just like some random fan sent it in and pitched it to him and he bought it.
I love it. That's so fucking cool, dude.
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
awesome.
Nice.
Daily Avengers #1 of 4. This is the last crossover that Marvel and DC did because they can't play nice with one another.
Yeah.
Kind of
They
a
used to
bummer.
do- It is a bummer because it used to be the distinguished competition, and whatever they'd always roast each other, but still like you'd have like Hulk versus Batman, or Hulk
Yeah.
versus Superman,
Yep.
Spider-Man versus whoever.
There was that
Teen
big
Titans,
crossover
X-Men.
in,
Yeah,
in
they-
like
or the whole
'97.
amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't know. It's too corporate now. The comics, especially with like Marvel and DC, it's like the way I feel about it. Like I dearly love comics, almost to like too much to the point where I get too emotional or get fired up. But to me, it's sort of like, you've got people that like put their heart and soul into and created this thing, but it's also at the same time as you've got like the Stan Lees and Jack Kirby's and Steve Ditko's who really like created these characters, but then they're owned by this corporation that is soulless and doesn't give a shit. And so it's like I feel like I'm not like brand loyal. Like I'm not gonna just like Hulk because I like, I'm not gonna just love every Hulk comic that comes out because I like the Hulk, as or the Fantastic Four. It's like I like the people that created it. They designed it and created it, and they understand the characters. Now it's like people, a lot of the modern characters, they're just used for, I don't know, political mouthpieces for whatever, soup du jour issue. And it's not the same care and love and like sort of, passion for the actual storytelling and the character. And I feel like a lot of the characters are written incorrectly. Like everything Marvel's done with X-Men has been kind of totally like not what I ever imagined X-Men to be, or most of their main characters. So and then I think it probably has a lot to do with Disney's corporate influence on like what they decide is going to go out there.
Yeah.
Still love the characters and I love the creators that created them, but I don't consider the people creating comics today, unless they're creating their own new characters. It's not like they're creators; they're caretakers of somebody else's intellectual property that they got the keys to the car for a few years, and somebody else is going to take it over.
Yeah. I don't
It's other
know.
people playing in the sandbox of someone else's toys.
Yeah, exactly.
The same as much as you want it to be. It just won't.
Yeah, that's why I don't go much Marvel or DC, but I go like horror comics, and I do have a few prized possessions. Like I have that one.
Very nice.
And then we have this one, which we're actually doing a contest for right now.
Yeah.
You can win your own signed copy too of the Terrifier comic, all hand drawn by Steve McGinnis.
If you fellas have some artistic talent, design us a Punk Rock Geek Den logo, and you could win.
Yeah.
There's only one.
Only one.
There's only one of us here that has artistic talent too.
Not necessarily.
Nice.
Actually, yeah, I'm working on a comic right now.
Oh yeah.
There's some pages. Yeah.
Right.
Go on.
Kind of on a pause. Let me see what I got. Under my desk. Here's updated. My little drawing desk in front of me.
Are you at home or are you at the studio, Ralph?
Nah, I'm at home. I was going to be at the studio, but Danny called in sick because of his COVID shot, so I came home. Here's my current pages for my little
Oh, wow, dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sick.
Thank you.
That's so awesome.
Big,
Gotta look quick.
pages.
You just sold 4 copies, my friend.
No kidding, dude.
The OG, here's the original issue.
Fucking A.
Ghastly Jack.
That's fucking gnarly.
Did you draw him, Ralph?
Yeah, drew and wrote it.
What?
I mean, the writing is actually pretty terrible, but it was a good experience as far as learning how to like print and do an indie comic. I even had a booth at Comic Con actually.
Wow.
Damn, dude. You got talent, man.
Okay.
Hey.
So I'm trying to get back on board.
I must know more about Ghastly Jack.
I'll
That
send you
booth
a
at
copy.
Comic Con
Got like
led us
5,000
to
of
be
them.
another comic.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'd love a copy, man. That'd be great. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I'd love a copy. I'll read this.
Right? I'll give you all the copies you want. I've got long boxes full of them just sitting there. I published it so like when I like the comics that I was super into, like when I was starting to make this, I've always loved, old Marvels and DCs and stuff, but also like indies, black and white, the whole black and white explosion of like the 80s and early 90s. So I always wanted to do that, and then I wanted to put it on newsprint too. So when I was looking for somewhere to print it, the only thing nearby was the Press Enterprise, the Riverside.
Yep.
I couldn't remember it. The Riverside newspaper. And so I went down to the like actual pressing plant and was like, hey, can you make a comic? And the sales lady was like, I guess so. So I had to give her like a random comic to show her the dimensions so she could like measure it out. But they printed it. The minimum run though, just to like turn the machine on, it's such a gigantic printer. It's like 5,000. Like by the time you turn it on and turn it off, it's already cranked out that many. So.
Yeah.
Damn.
Endless amounts of these things. They're just like so many boxes. It was funny too because they didn't care about like keeping them nice and folded. This is a newspaper printer, so when I went to go pick them up, they were just baled with like baling wire, like stacks and stacks on a pallet, like just sitting in the back. So only about half of them were like stuff I could sell. The rest were like all bent, creased, and messed up. So I just ended up giving it up.
Yeah.
It's fun. I've really been wanting to do it again. That was actually my summer like passion, like goal to do, but so much other crap happened. I didn't really get as far into it as I wanted to. But I've got like 3 issues planned, so I'm gonna try and do little Kickstarters or something as I get through one.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
We'll definitely plug the shit out of that.
Hell
I'll
yeah,
keep you guys
dude.
posted on my progress.
All right.
I love indie comics, man. I mean, I love my like you. I love the Marvel and DC, but like the indie stuff is where like creators, when they, how do I want to say it, like you get to really shine, and like this is something I love. I'm passionate about, and I'm putting it on pen to paper and sharing it with the world. And there's just something about that. That's that DIY aspect. Like
exactly. It's punk. It's like you just make your own. It's like it's cool to be signed to a major label, which would be like Disney and Marvel, but it's also cool to just make your own shit. I mean, and you don't even really have to be a great artist or a great writer or whatever. You just make something.
Yeah.
Make it. Just make something.
Yep.
Great.
And it would be cool. I would love to write, Ghost Rider or something if I ever got this job. But
I bet you'd be really good at. I bet you'd be really good at writing either Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, or Doctor Fate.
Hell yeah! Oh yeah, definitely Doctor Fate. Doctor Strange, a little less so. Although I'm a huge Steve Ditko fan, so any of his creations I love, and I have a bunch. I've got collected one of the nothing fancy, but the old Marvel essentials where they're like a little phone book with all black and white pictures. I've got all the Doctor Strange ones. But Steve Ditko is just one of my favorite artists ever.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr.
Co-creator.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody always remembers Stan Lee, but nobody remembers poor little Steve Ditko, the libertarian, Ayn Rand worshipping artist, iconoclast.
We don't really have to have it.
Also created
Stan Lee, right? We don't have to actually talk about.
What's that?
It can get real ugly real quick in this podcast.
I don't know. I think I like Stan Lee, but I think Stan Lee was a good salesperson. He took credit that was not really his to take in a lot of cases. In fact, even Jack Kirby is co-creator of most of the classic Marvel characters. Stan Lee gets credit for creating all this stuff, and even Captain America, Stan Lee had no hand in creating. That was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. But you always see characters created by. He wrote them later on, especially in the Silver Age. But when Jack Kirby left Marvel and went to DC and created the New Gods and stuff, he even created a character based on Stan Lee because he was so sick of Stan Lee called Funky Flash. That's just like a caricature of Stan Lee and is a showboaty loud mouth.
Oh,
Jack Kirby the King for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jack Kirby. But it's that's one of those things that makes me sad. It's you see the Marvel movies, And Stan Lee makes his appearance, which is cool, but Jack Kirby died before most of those were made, so he didn't have that opportunity. But you never see Stan share the credit. You'd think he would say, you know what, it's really due to my friend Jack, who also created the Hulk, the Avengers, Captain America, or Steve Ditko, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange. You know, all these, like, the whole entire pantheon, the major characters. There's always, you know, there's going to be other characters along the way that get created, but the main ones that everybody thinks of when they think of Marvel, Stan Lee would dialogue them, but most of the time it would be the artist would do all the Marvel style is just the artist gets a script, which is maybe like a couple paragraphs. They draw the whole thing, and then Stan would go in and write out the word bubbles. But it's not.
I was just gonna say yes. That's 100% correct, dude. Yeah,
and
like
so
Jack and Steve did all the work, and Stan just like, you know, and then this happens, and then this happens, and just write it in like.
I like his writing, and I like his, like, you know, he's a very verbose, like, sort of like eloquent guy. Uses Shakespearean type language with Thor and stuff like that. But the problem is he became the face. You know, it's not even really his fault. It's like he's on one hand he's probably a little bit of a showboat, but on the other hand he's sort of just expected to be the face of the company, so he just was put into that position. But you know, towards the end too, I think he was starting to just kind of go mentally, and it's almost being like elder abused by his people that just wanted to continually suck money off of him. But it's just a shame that like the other guys that had such a big hand in creating these characters didn't ever get the real credit that they were due. You know, because it's a visual medium. So Stan was a good writer, but I don't think his prose, if it was just a novel, would have sold anything like, you know, without the dynamic art of like Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko or Gene Colan.
Yeah.
100%.
It's the design. It's like, I don't want to read about, you know, Wolverine if he's just a guy in like street clothes. It's like you want to see the claws popping and he looks bad.
Yeah.
There's purely visual. If it's just a guy that drives around a motorcycle, it's boring. If his head is a skull and it's on fire, then it's awesome.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of Wolverine's Dave Cockrum costume, the yellow and the gold and the brown.
Yeah.
Never really liked the gold and the blue personally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's funny you were talking.
Oh no,
sorry. Oh, I was gonna say it's funny you were talking about that, like with Stan and Jack and Steve. It wasn't until recently that Warner Brothers and DC finally acknowledged that Bill Finger is the co-creator of Batman.
Yeah, and that took years. Because Bob Kane owned the copyright, or sort of like registered the creation of it. But Bill Finger did like Bill Finger created Joker, almost Robin, you know, Jerry Robinson too. And then Bob Kane was just kind of, it was like back in those days too, especially in the golden age, it would be like artist studios. So you'd have like the main guy who signed his name on each comic, but he'd have a bunch of like teenage kids sitting around that would also just, you know, they'd do the backgrounds or they'd, you know, or whatever. It was like a studio environment. So a lot of those creators back then would create their own ideas, and whoever owned the studio would just sort of assimilate it. So like for Bob Kane, it was that kind of thing, you know, the Joker, a lot of the villains, Robin, those are all characters he didn't create. In fact, he is notorious for even ripping things off. You can find literally like there's a famous picture of early golden age Bob Kane Batman where he's kind of hunched over in a weird pose. You can overlay it over a picture of Tarzan from, I can't think of the artist's name at the time, but it's literally traced. It's like exactly the same proportions, same thing. And he's always gone on record by just like saying that the character is based on the Bat, the Vincent Price movie. So Bob Kane got all the credit, like Stan Lee, but it was all the other guys that worked with him that like really like created most of the memorable sort of aspects of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
dude.
And especially those golden age characters too. Just it was very much like people were just trying to throw out ideas, and like it was pure like market driven. It's like whatever, there are millions of copies of comics coming out at, you know, like every day because they were a new novel thing. So people are just throwing any idea against the wall to see what would stick and take off. And so it was really just trying to find the next big hit. So it was like variations on themes, and then but the ones that did, you know, they would just crank them out, and it was the demand was so high that you couldn't have just one artistes sitting there writing and drawing. You'd have like a whole team of like, minimum wage flubs just sitting there cranking out pages as fast as they could.
Yeah.
That was the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
That's why none of those guys had ownership of that. Like Jack Kirby didn't own Captain America, even though he invented him. Mm-hmm. Or like, Phil Everett created Submariner. He ended up being like a sad alcoholic, basically working for cheap wages at Marvel because Stan kind of took pity on him because they were like, still using his character that he created. Submariner was like he was like, for Marvel back in the golden age, he was like their Superman or their Batman. He was like the anti-hero. And then Human Torch. All those characters, people come up with these cool ideas and they publish them and they sell millions of copies, but they don't own any of that. And then they're just sitting there as like wage slaves later in life trying to like make ends meet, drawing their same character they invented that a corporation now owns and is just like soaking up all the money from. Kind of sad and depressing.
Yeah. And as much as I'm not a big Neil Adams fan, like as a person, his art did a lot of work. It did a lot of good things, but at the same time, he was the guy that took DC to court to get their rights of their artwork back. Because, you had those guys putting all that artwork and DC, Marvel, everybody would keep it and say, oh, it's ours, it's not yours, you don't have any rights to it, blah, blah, blah. And Neil Adams took him to court and he was like, this is bullshit. And that's the only way that artists are actually getting their own artwork back, being able to sell the artwork that they make. And so as much as I'm not a fan of the person, he did something really good for comics in that.
Yeah. And he was actually like instrumental. He was one of the main guys that got Joel Siegel and Joe Shuster any amount of royalties for creating like the most popular character in the comics medium, Superman. Mm-hmm. And they were like teenagers at the time when they created it, so they just wanted to make a buck. So they sold the character for Superman. And then
they made like $100 on it or something.
Yeah, something small, peanuts. They were just trying to make, they're trying to get a job basically. So they were, it was like they just sold it for whatever they could, not having any idea of the impact it would have. But then DC owns that copyright and they're going to hold on to it forever. And it wasn't until much later when they finally started crediting them and actually giving them shares of the royalties. And it was around the time of the 1978 Christopher Reeve Superman movie that they actually finally got a piece of the pie. But by that point, like, Joe Shuster was blind and these guys were like these little old dudes who had lived a life of like, scraping by their whole life and finally getting a little bit of recognition. But anybody will it's the same thing with the Stan Lee thing. Everybody can tell you who created Marvel, Stan Lee, but no normie on the street's gonna know Joel Siegel and Joe Shuster created Superman. Even most people that know James Bond know that Ian Fleming wrote it, or they know that Harry Potter is written by.
It's funny that you say that because in Canada we know that Schuster wrote it because there's a line of commercials when I was a teenager to young adult called the Heritage Minute, and they went all over Joel Shuster's contribution to Superman.
He was a Canadian.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
We don't do much. That's one of our things.
Is acknowledging the creators of Superman and who spawned, like, pretty much created comics as far as superhero comics as a medium. That Superman can't be stated.
All day.
That thing, like, still, more people know who Superman is than know who the president of the country is or the vice president. I mean, like Superman and Mickey Mouse, every person on the planet Earth can recognize.
Yes, 100%.
Yep,
for real.
Why I always had mad respect for Image Comics. They were a little abrasive when they first started. Like, we're superstar Marvel artists. We're gonna form our own company with hookers and blackjack tables. But I digress. But the cool thing that they do is, like, if you go to work for Image and you create a character, you own that character. And if you decide to leave Image later, you take your character with you. That's why Jim Lee, one of the founders of Image Comics, took Wildstorm with him when he went to go to DC. And he still owns Wildstorm.
That's true.
Like the Wildcats and all that shit,
The Authority. And
the Authority, that's a crazy comic book, dude.
That's a good one. But also, on the flip side, if you want to be published through Image, you have to pay for it yourself. It's basically just a publishing name. So you got to pay for your own you basically print your own comic. They put the little I logo on there and will distribute it as an image comic. So, but back in the day, they were definitely like, you know, brash and rock starry, but they were also getting, you know, they were like creating all this stuff that was selling millions of copies. Like X-Force 1 by Rob Liefeld was like the second biggest comic ever printed. And X-Men 1 by Jim Lee, and Spider-Man 1 by Todd McFarlane. So,
oh, are you talking about X-Men #1?
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's awesome.
Chris Claremont, Jim Lee, highest selling comic book of all time.
Basically, yeah. And then X-Force, I think X-Force 1 is #2. Spider-Man #1 is maybe up there too. But those were like monumental, and that was the era where like literally every kid. Yeah, hell yeah.
It's still polybagged with a card in it too.
Cool. Yeah, it was like every kid I knew. That was like my era, man. Every single kid like read comics then. It wasn't even like everybody knew. Everybody read The Dark Knight Returns. Everybody had read Spawn, or well, I guess that was a little later, but everybody knew. Like these guys were like household names. Like it was like knowing who plays on the Lakers. You know, everybody knew who Todd McFarlane or Jim Lee was at the time. It's too bad. Too bad the heyday is over, but maybe it'll come back. I think manga is kind of bringing it back, honestly. I think seeing like the passion that kids have for manga, and it's taken me a minute to get into it because it's like a different style of storytelling, but I'm even getting into it now. I like it, and it's cool. It's, you know, it's like fun. It fulfills all the same stuff that the comics did back in that time period, where it's cheap, disposable, good stories, cool action, really well designed art, you know, and it's engaging, and it's like you read a little book in an hour, it's like $10. Nowadays, like a normal issue of any Marvel comic is like $5, and you get like 20 pages of story, poorly written, poorly drawn. I can't think of. There's like 2 artists that are like halfway decent. All the writers are garbaggio. So maybe not all, but many of them. I haven't read anything. I'll try to find something that I want to read, and I'll get maybe 2 issues in, and it's just not hitting the mark. The only thing I like right now is Beta Ray Bill by Daniel Warren Johnson.
Yes, some good shit, dude. Jonathan Hickman's a pretty good writer too.
Yeah, no, he's good, but I don't like the whole X-Men thing with Krakoa Island and all the like.
Come
weird...
on, man, I'm digging that.
I'm not going to tell you it's bad, but for my taste, it doesn't really. It's just not really hitting the mark. They're just like plant, like clones. Like, are they even like mutants anymore? They're like weird, like plant people that can't die. Like, I don't get it. Hellfire Gallop is not my. I'm not going to tell somebody it's not cool. Everybody has different tastes.
Speaking of plant people, I went and grabbed some plant people comic books, if you don't mind.
Yeah, dude.
So,
what's what you got?
So, I'm a big Bernie Wrightson collector. He was an artist. He co-created Swamp Thing. As Ralph talked about me being the weird Swamp Thing guy. That's 100%. I got a couple things in the mail today that I thought were really cool. There's a company called Nakatomi out in Texas that does prints, but they also just did a Kickstarter for some puzzles, and it did some Bernie Wrightson artwork puzzles. Frankenstein right here, and this little dragon is a sweet one. I haven't even opened them yet. They literally came out. They came to me today. But comic-wise, actually, I'll show this real quick. Which way? Fuck it. I had like 3 things. I brought this statue out. So Bernie Wrightson died in 2017. Fantastic artist. If you like horror comics at all, and you've never read anything that Bernie Wrightson has drawn, then you're missing out completely. But Bernie has a son named John Wrightson, who is a very accomplished sculptor and special effects artist. He's working on Fear of the Walking Dead currently and all kinds of other stuff. But he also did this Swamp Thing bust.
Oh, wow.
That he sent to me, and I'm pretty fucking excited.
That is awesome.
Oh my god, that is cool, dude.
To have
I love Swamp Thing, man. He's one of my favorite comic book characters.
You know, the closest thing I'll ever have to having Bernie sculpt something for me is having his son do it.
Yeah.
That's amaze balls.
Close
But then I've got this here. It's a House of Secrets 92. It's the first appearance of Swamp Thing. And it's created by CDC. It's only at 2.0 because it has its flaws, but this was given to me as a gift, and I'm very happy about that. But
awesome.
a cool little story. I have Louise Simonson signed that, and that is the wife of Walter Simonson, who wrote tons of Thor, created Archangel, all kinds of stuff. But the reason I had Louise sign that and have CDC grade it was Bernie used her as the model for the cover of the book. So there's photos of her in this position with her little brush and everything like that. So Bernie used her as the model for the book. And when him and Len Wein did it in '72, it was a big deal. So I'm very happy to have it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you for sharing that, dude. That's fucking awesome.
Well,
hang on a second. I got
This-
something here. Let me find
This
it.
one's the oldest one that I have. This is my favorite. I'm a Hulk guy.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, me too. I have a reprint of that. It says like Marvel superheroes, and it's just like a 1970s reprint of that same issue. That's like one of my favorite issues.
Yeah.
What is it, Mage?
The first Thing versus the Hulk.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And I think it's like
Bernie actually did a really good graphic novel of the Thing versus the Hulk that Jim Sumner wrote. Yeah, Bernie drew that, and it was one of Marvel's original graphic novels back in the 80s.
Yeah. Back when they used to like number the graphic novels, like graphic novel number 3.
Yeah. Like, before they put them out again or something, it was like one single line of graphic novels.
Yeah, it was like the sort of high-end comics of the time.
Yeah.
And it was like Death of Captain Marvel, and then like I don't know, they would do like weird like film adaptations. Or no, I'm thinking Marvel Fanfare was a film adaptation.
You're thinking like what is it? God Love Man Kills, the X-Men one by Claremont.
Yeah.
That was a graphic novel.
Yeah. Death of Captain Marvel, I think, was number 1 actually, wasn't it? Or maybe not. The Death of Captain Marvel, the one where Captain Marvel actually like dies of cancer.
Yeah, Nitro gave him cancer.
Was that what it was? I remember reading it like as like a kid. I don't have a copy of it, but it was like super depressing because he's just on his deathbed the whole time. And I had a couple of issues of the like old like Captain Marvel comics, with like Gil Kane artwork, and like he was kind of always just sort of like a B-list character. Like the only reason that character even exists is because the copyright for Captain Marvel. That's like another interesting corporate bullshit thing. So like
the DC Marvel.
Yeah, Captain Marvel was like more popular, like in comics. Shazam is who he's called now. And the reason why he's called Shazam and not Captain Marvel is because Captain Marvel, the character, was kind of a similar character to Superman, but different in a lot of ways. It was much more like kid oriented. He's like a little kid that when he speaks the word Shazam turns into Captain Marvel. And so there's kind of fantastic characters. There's like a talking tiger named Talkie Tawny, like Mr. Mime, the little worm. But like it was like awesome art, and the company that made it was called Foster Comics. And then DC at the time, National Publications, was pissed that Captain Marvel started outselling Superman, so they sued him, saying it was a copyright infringement. And they actually won the case. So Fawcett had to cease publication of Captain Marvel, and DC from then forth like owned that character, I think, or maybe they acquired it later. But they didn't do anything with it because they wanted Superman to be the big guy. So they just kind of buried all those characters. And then there was a period of time in the early 70s where the name Captain Marvel came up as far as like the copyright expired, and Marvel like jumped on it the second that was open because it was a no-brainer for them being Marvel Comics. They're like, we need to own that character. So they just made a character, some rando dude, just to fill that name, Captain Marvel. And then as the story evolved with Captain Marvel, because originally he's like got a green helmet and a white suit, and then they gave him the like blue and red suit, but they kind of made him more like the OG Captain Marvel when Roy Thomas started like writing the character and giving him like he would like switch places with Rick Jones So it was kind of like the Billy Batson Captain Marvel thing, and then and then at that time, DC started publishing old like reprints of it, bringing it back in, but they couldn't publish. They could call the character Captain Marvel, but they couldn't publish the comic book as Captain Marvel because Marvel owned it now. So that's when it became known as Shazam. Now they just skirt around the whole thing by just calling the character Shazam. But Shazam is the wizard. He is Captain Marvel, but
this is
you
what I
guys
was
probably
looking
should
for.
have booked us for a whole episode about comics. I'm sorry.
No,
yeah, I know. We do like a 5-hour like mega show.
Swamp Thing #2.
Fucking A, dude.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty right scenario. That's like the Unmen Arcane era. That's
Arcane's first appearance right there. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I got what is it? I got Swamp Thing #57. I'm thinking this is from the 80s. It's written by Alan Moore, Rick Veit, and Alfredo Alcala.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Rick Veit. Oh, that was like when he was like transferring his like brain to like other planets, and he could like part of the planet. Alfredo Alcala he was like a really, really prolific inker. He was like he did a lot of the inks for tons of stuff. But
it just really pops.
It was a cool interview with him. Yeah, he was like one of the few inkers that would ink with like a brush pen instead of like, so nobody usually uses those. Usually use like a Winsor Newton and dip it in the ink and then brush that way. But he would ink so many pages, and it was so prolific. He just like, it was like a pen that you just filled with ink in the back side, and you just like constantly ink like all day long. He ended up dying of like, I think, lung cancer because he was like a heavy smoker. But that guy was like on everything.
Yeah.
And Rick is awesome too. He did Rarebit, or was it Rarebit Fiends, the book of like dreams and stuff. He was a famous like indie guy too.
Yeah. He's still doing work.
Yeah. Like he did was it Rat Pack?
Yeah, Rat Pack.
Yeah.
And the one,
so, like,
one is like
yeah, I did the one with Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been putting out like straight to Amazon books on his own for
quite a while. Really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I remember. Oh shit! I didn't. Oh, anyway.
Oh, Joe's surprising himself.
Future Imperfect, Hulk is the introduction of the Maestro.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Dale Keown. Who's the art? Dale Keown. The one on the left looks like it.
Who did the art?
He was like an early image guy too. He did Pit. He's actually going to do his own crowdfunding. He's going to do a Pit omnibus.
Damn.
I hate how much money Kickstarter gets from me because it's a lot.
I know. That's pretty much like as far as new stuff goes. That's like 90% of like what I buy is like Kickstarters, Indiegogos. It's so much fun. It's like, because it's kind of like you're like watching the process as it unfolds, and I don't know. It's more intimate and fun, and I love it.
It's like Christmas because you forget about it, and then all of a sudden 6 months later, like all these comics show up at your door, and you're just like, "Holy shit! What is all this stuff?"
What I just got, and I don't think Tom's probably the biggest fan of this dude, but one of the guys that I really like is like Easy Man Skyver. He did like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo for a omnibus of his 90s work. He had like an indie comic called, it was kind of like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles offshoot called Cyberfrog.
Wow.
But I remember buying like a couple of issues. Yeah, this is dope. I mean, it's like a beautiful, it's like very
gorgeous,
like high quality, really nice. Yeah, it's hardcover. It's awesome. But I think it was like $35. So I buy like tons of stuff on the Indiegogo Kickstarter. But it's fun because it's like you find creators that are like real passionate. They want to do their own thing. So it's like, it's indie, but instead of, it's like different now than the direct market where you have to kind of like order through previews or whatever. It's like, you know, these artists will pitch their idea. And so you kind of, you know, it might take a long time before you actually get the book, but it's like exciting because you can watch all these, you know, they'll like make videos about their progress or whatever. And you kind of feel like you're on the ground floor. It's cool. I love it.
Yeah.
George Perez
like
did the art.
Oh, George Perez. Hell yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Crisis on Infinite Earths himself. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And the new Teen Titans.
Yeah. Oh.
So
He retired from doing conventions because he can't see very well anymore. And just literally, I don't know, maybe in the last month, I can't remember, he announced that he was doing a private signing with CBC over in Florida because once COVID hit, CBC was like, we don't know what to do. We don't have shows anymore. We can't create books anymore. People aren't doing this as much as they need to, as much as we need them to. And so they started doing private signings. So you'd send in your book for a specific artist or writer, and they would sign it all on one day, grade it all in a couple weeks or so, and send it back to you. And now it's gotten to, they're doing so many of them that they're taking, a good 6 weeks to get you your books back, even longer, 3 months, 4 months, it's kind of crazy. They announced that they're hiring all this new staff, and a lot of collectors were very excited. We assumed, wait times would go down, get our books back faster, this and that. Nothing has changed at all. They've just done more signings and nothing's really that faster.
Yeah.
It shows the demand is up.
Yeah, it does.
The comic book market is a fucking joke right now. It looks like the housing market. They're the exact same thing.
Secondary market.
Yeah, if you want to buy, a first Swamp Thing or anything close to that, it's 3 times the amount it was 2 years ago. But it's obnoxious.
Even like last year, like over COVID, I kind of got out of buying like new Marvels and DCs, but now I'm an adult. I got some spending money, and so there's a great online comic shop. It's like Lone Star Comics in Texas, but their website is called mycomicshop.com. There's them. There's also Mile High out in New York, but they I've just been filling in like all these back issues because as a kid, like I wasn't a collector where it was like I'd only buy Spider-Man every month. I'd have like $1 to spend. So I'm like every superhero. So instead of buying like every issue of Green Lantern every month, I'd buy like 1 month I'd buy a Green Lantern, next month I'd buy like Spider-Man, next month I'd buy Avengers. So there's all these stories where it's like and I didn't have that many comics when I was little because my parents weren't big fans of me reading comics, even though like I was in love with them. So I had like probably like as a child, all the comics I collected were like maybe a stack about yay high, but I knew every single panel in there and would, so every issue I got, I'd know everything in it, but I never knew what happened. So now I'm going back and I'm like all these like comics that I can still remember. I like want to know what happened. So I've been buying these runs of like back issues, but last year, it was like, I'd buy low quality. I'm not really interested in like having perfect comics and slabbing them and stuff, but I just want to have reader copies that I can read. But they used to be $1.20, maybe $2, but everything like literally like doubled in price to tripled in price. So now the same comics I was buying for $1.20 are now even just rando comics that nobody else is interested in but me are like $3 or $4. And $10 just for had like fine copy. It's crazy.
Yeah. So why don't we take another quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some horror movies.
That works.
Let's get one more trivia question.
Oh, hell yeah.
All right. Unstated in the movie, what is the name of the demon that possesses Regan McNeil in The Exorcist?
Pazuzu.
Very good.
Damn, dude. My man takes no prisoners.
I wasn't even gonna try. I knew he was gonna do it.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. I wanted to know. I wanted to rerun. Yep.
On American Psycho.
All right, we'll be right back.
There's something strange in the neighborhood.
So who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! Each sold separately.
Have no fear. Venkman, Stamps, and Spangler are here. So are these ghosts. They've got ectoplasm. We've been goofed. Now what? Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Let's show this pile of dessert who's boss. Activating Chrono Blaster. We ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Beer Banquet, Ectoplasm, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and other figures each sold separately. Ghostbusters, new from Kenner.
Now a new raspberry.
All right, we're back. Now, you were just telling us, Ralph, that you worked on a couple of pretty big movies back in the day. We want to.
Yeah, I actually worked on a bunch.
Matt wasn't in his little room whenever you said it, so I want to see his.
Yeah. Okay, so I worked on. Was one of the ones I worked on. I worked on Contact, Blade, Steel with Jack. I got to mold Jack's whole body. What else? 8 heads in a duffel bag. A bunch of like Roger Corman films we worked on with a friend. One of my good buddies, actually, who's now a director, Rob Hall. If anybody's ever seen any of the Chrome Skull series, he like created that. That's like the same thing.
Laid the rest.
But,
yeah.
That's like his whole thing.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that series.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's like totally indie. He was awesome. We actually met working on. We were both working for Steve Johnson, who did tons of stuff. But we were working on like a werewolf movie called Bad Moon, and then the TV production of The Shining. And we were both mold makers at that shop. And he had a Chikara tattoo, and which is like the kiss symbol. It's like that Japanese symbol they use.
Yeah.
A huge fan, so we like hit it off. I was like, oh, hey, you like Kiss? So then he started like kind of grilling me on like Kiss trivia, and I guess I knew enough Kiss trivia that he knew I wasn't like a poser. And so we became home. He was also in his spare time pitching to do effects for like Roger Corman films and stuff. So we did like a couple of movies. One was called Star Quest 2 or something like that, and then Black Scorpion 2. Which ended up turning into a TV show, and then tons of stuff. I don't even remember. I have like a whole list of movies I worked on.
Oh, there it is.
Well, this one, Ralph. This one looks familiar, right?
Hey, yeah, there you go. Hell yeah.
I have a sealed VHS copy of this for some reason.
Oh, that's awesome!
Wow.
Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah, my dad was not like a reader, but I remember like when I worked on that film, it was like I remember my mom was like an English teacher too, so she was a bibliophile, and I was a bookworm. She was a bookworm, but my dad was like a car guy. He did about books, but that was like the one book he ever read because once I worked on it, he was like all excited in movies. So yeah, he like actually read.
That's awesome.
So. One of the movies we want to talk about is Zombie.
Hell yeah.
Fulci movie. Yeah.
Also known as Zombie 2.
Also known as Zombie 2. Yep.
Which do you know why? Here's a little trivia. I'll give you a trivia question. Why is it called Zombie 2?
That I don't know.
I'm not allowed to answer.
Go ahead. Answer. It's cool trivia. So in Italian copyright law, you can make any movie can be a sequel of a pre-existing property. So like let's say Star Wars comes out, it's a huge hit, you can make Star Wars 2 in Italy.
Oh my god.
and so like when so Night of the Living Dead by George Romero, big film, and then the sequel Dawn of the Dead was huge. And when Dawn of the Dead came out in Italy, they actually re-edited it and redid the soundtrack with Goblin.
Yeah, that I know. Yeah.
And it was a real huge hit in Italy. So they were Dawn of the Dead, but Dawn of the Dead in Italy was released as Zombie, just ZOMBI.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
And Zombie, the one we just watched, is actually the sequel to Dawn of the Dead, and that which is interesting and weird. So like in Italy they would know it as Zombie 2, but in America we know it as Zombie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was
creates way more questions than it answers.
It was their first time seeing it, and they walked away with a few questions on it. So I'll let those guys have the floor.
I just have a list of things I took away from it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, first of all, as we started watching this, the first thing I noticed was New York, because you see the Statue of Liberty. Craig here, we don't know how many times.
Lots of times, and never realized it was New York in the background.
And you got the World Trade Center in the
like you got the Twin Towers, you got the statue. There's the Empire State Building. I was like,
And I think this time we watched it, I was like, oh, that's New York.
but not actually anything in New York. It's all shot from like the harbor.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Stay out of New York.
A couple things I took away here.
Probably a lot of money.
One, don't hit women. And if you do, you deserve to die horribly. And naked scuba diving is a horrible idea.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely a horrible idea.
Like aquatic zombies
happen. That was a pretty cool sequence. I'm not gonna lie.
Zombie versus shark.
Yeah, that's probably like the most famous part about that movie is the shark versus the zombie. There's another. I can't think of the name. I don't know if it was Zombieland or one of the movies, or Shaun of the Dead or something. Some modern movie got a guy wearing a shirt that just says like "Zombie versus Shark," which is great. It's one of the best like scenes in.
Yeah.
Between that and the eye, like the door splinter into the eyeball.
Yeah.
Those were the two things I remember from that.
That was a cool death.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, the eyeball scene had them cringing a little bit.
There's slow.
Yeah, it's a real slow, stressful kill. Like you don't really, he really drew that one out.
It's like Fulci did, what is it, City of the Damned as well? And
City of the Dead, yeah.
There's the girl sitting in the car and she just starts bleeding out of her eyeballs, and it's just like focusing just on her as it's pouring out of her eyes, and it's fucking it hurts. Yeah. He likes eyes. The fucking Italians like eyeballs. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also love like kind of like the late 70s like that blood color that they use, like Technicolor red. It's not trying to look like actual blood.
Technicolor
red. Thick and opaque. It doesn't look like blood at all. It's just thick red paint.
Yeah.
It's super violent.
I watched Dawn of the Dead the other night and was just like, wow. This one should have been black and white too.
Yeah. One thing with Zombie though. Zombie is cool because they brought back the whole like voodoo origins of zombies.
Yeah.
But kind of married to the Romero
zombies that you think of when you think of horror movie zombies.
Yeah, and it has zombies coming out of the ground, which is like it's just a thing for me. They have to come out of the ground. Like all this like new age army versus zombie thing, it doesn't sit with me. I don't know.
Yeah, it needs like gothic kind of early like stuff. But I think the thing that like as far as like zombie films as a genre, I'm kind of ambivalent towards, except for the George Romero stuff. Like I love Night of the Living Dead is one of my all-time favorite movies, and then the whole first the trilogy of like Night, Dawn, Day. But George Romero always used zombies as almost like an allegory for weird social problems happening in society. Like Night of the Living Dead has a lot of like sort of civil rights kind of aspects to it, and Dawn of the Dead is kind of like a social critique on consumerism, and Day of the Dead is like a critique on the military-industrial complex. But so Zombie kind of takes it more back to its roots, but it misses that aspect of the sort of social critique of using it as in an allegorical sense, and it's more just plain scares. But there's two of like the best shots in any zombie movie ever. It's like the zombie versus the shark, and then that final scene in the movie where It's just whatever bridge that is going into New York.
Yeah, and they're all just walking the bridge. Yeah,
yeah.
It
come
just
back
spells
to the,
impending.
when they go, it's that total apocalypse is already.
Yeah, and that was the funny part I mentioned to them was like I always knew that was New York in the end. I never realized it was New York in the beginning.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. It's like you got 2 or 3 really good spots in a masterpiece of bullshit.
Yeah. But from a filmmaking perspective, it's genius because it's like you don't need a filming permit to shoot New York from afar, right? So you can keep it feels like New York, but they never go into New York. They just have these long shots where you're out in the harbor, which is probably like international waters, or they're shooting guerrilla style where they don't even need a film permit. So they can still get these cool establishing shots of New York without having to pay whatever it would cost to actually get a permit to shoot it. Yeah, I love that. It's sort of like guerrilla filmmaking style.
Yeah, it's like very similar to like Maniac Cop. They wanted a big scene out when they were doing the St. Patrick's Day parade in New York, and they wanted Bruce Campbell to run through and be tracking a cop and this and that. And they literally called Bruce before the movie even happened, before they had anything about it, and they were like, "Hey, this big event is happening in New York. Will you just kind of like run around in the parade and let a fake cop chase you?" And they were like, "Yeah, we'll just film that. And we'll throw it we'll find a way to write it into the movie." And it's 100% one of those things where you take advantage of like a big event that's happening and just film it and hope no one catches you.
Yeah. That's like the Ed Wood style, you know? He's like, just took like stock footage or whatever he had, which actually like, I feel like Plan 9 from Outer Space is really like a precursor to Night of the Living Dead. And as much as like Plan 9 from Outer Space gets trashed as like worst movie ever filmed, the actual concept for that, the plot, I mean, he couldn't execute it because he had a budget of like nothing. He was just doing what he could. But if you think about that idea, I'm surprised nobody's ever like really tried to make a cool remake of it, because it's just a great idea that like aliens come to Earth, and instead of just like invading with their own army, they just reanimate the dead to take over. Yeah. It's a genius idea. But that was, that came 5 years or 6 years before Night of the Living Dead. And it was really the first time you saw zombies crawl out of the grave with like Thor Johnson coming out of the dirt. And it's like, he really did have a big impact, but everybody makes fun of him for being a clown. But if you think about it, that actual concept would be the coolest movie if you did like a big budget remake of it. It could be like epic.
Yeah, it could. Yeah. You could get a new Triax and
yeah, it's like Return of the Living Dead had that same vibe.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, as far as like zombie films, zombie is like one of the great, but really the only like I think zombies to like this current decade is sort of like vampires were to the last decade, where they just got so watered down that it was just lost its impact. There's so much zombie crap.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It looks okay.
What are we talking about?
Hours later, it's not okay.
Zombies.
What I liked
Modern
about
day
that movie specifically, because there wasn't a lot. I'm not a horror guy, but what I really liked about this particular zombie was the camera work. He had a way of doing the pan and zoom on anything that was important, leading to his climax. And it really just hammered on it. Like if I felt my mind wandering, he'd go and do that. It's like he read my mind and he drew me right back in, and it would hit like a train.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's like a very like Italian cinema kind of thing.
It is.
A lot of that.
That's distinctly Italian, I'd say.
Yeah.
You watch zombie movies now, like you get that Netflix movie that what's his name, the Batman and Superman dude did.
Zack Snyder.
Thank you. That movie was fucking garbage because he thought he was going to be a cool cinematographer and use like this old Italian like film where he had this like high focus or like super low focus or whatever it was. So you had a lot of blur when it came to characters that weren't like right in the frame. Yeah. And it looked like garbage the way he used it, and I was very upset by that. That movie was garbage. I'm sorry.
Well, I never even saw it. I heard bad things about it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it.
Army of the Dead? What was it called?
Army of the Dead, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
Army of the Dead. Is that what we're talking? I thought we were talking about Batman versus. Oh.
Oh no, that was shit too. We can
Yeah, I
talk
did
all
an
about that
entire
later.
segment on our show about that movie. It was bad news
yeah.
bears. Man,
We'll
terrible.
start a second part 2. Just call us next time.
Oh, yeah. I like the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League. I thought it was cool. I like seeing Darkseid finally.
Darkseid.
Sure.
But
I thought they did a good job, but the rest of the movie was kind of meh.
Yeah, he definitely makes a good preview. Like that's one thing he's good at. He makes an awesome preview.
Yeah, he sure does. He makes you want to watch the movie, but then when you do, you get upset.
Yeah, because everything's in the preview.
And I've told Greg this before, but like the only Zack Snyder movie that I'm really a fan of is Dawn of the Dead.
The remake.
Yeah. Remake, yeah.
I think he did a really good job with that. But
yeah,
I love 300.
Yeah, 300 was
yeah,
good.
300 was good. Yeah.
Actually, I love Watchmen. I don't know why Watchmen gets so much hate, but I thought Watchmen was like one of the best like comic adaptations ever.
It
They
was.
changed the ending.
I haven't seen that one enough to really appreciate it. I don't.
No, I'll give it to Watchmen. It was.
They took their
one of his
time,
good ones.
and they didn't. I mean, there was a lot to force in, but it didn't feel shoehorned at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't ask Alan more about it because he'll hate the end.
Speaking of Watchmen, I got the entire thing.
Nice. Yeah. Actually, I teach it to my kids.
Yes, he does.
I'll be copies. But yeah, Alan Moore hates everything that's ever been adapted. So he hates From Hell. He hates everything.
Yeah.
He's notorious for that. He's like impossible to please. But I mean, that's part of the challenge of taking like a source material like a comic, because there's so much you can do with a comic that you can't do in a film. But
yeah,
I thought Watchmen was good. The only thing that, I mean, it did change the ending, but I thought the film ending made more sense than the comic ending. Without
the whole, Ozymandias's weird cat thing, I totally understand why they left that out. I'm okay with
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And then the whole idea, it's so convoluted to create like the idea of like an alien invasion. That would have just taken so much more effort than having a guy that already has nuclear power and blame nuclear explosions on him. I thought that was a better, and I'm, whatever. Alan Moore can't please the guy, but I loved it. I thought it was cool. And how many superhero movies do you get to see with a giant blue swinging dong just
and how he owned it.
Hanging on.
The elephant.
Shaq's arm holding an apple.
I think the like CGI artist for that, and then so his whole job is just to like animate a giant computer graphic penis.
That's Steve Smith, wiener animator.
There's so much detail, he's like, his little skin has like little galaxies and nuclear explosions happening up,
Yeah.
It would just take so much effort. A team of 10 made that penis.
Working around the clock.
Yeah, it was like some whole little cubicle office and kids and computers sitting there working on that thing.
That's why it's only in the one scene. You get lost in that. Staring at it.
Yeah, when it comes on screen, you're just like,
what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know, but it's fun.
You're saying you only got lost on one penis scene? Like, come on now.
I'd be a mess, not gonna lie.
I love that movie. I think they did such a good job with the soundtrack and stuff. I don't know why. For some reason, people hate that movie. I don't know why. I think it's awesome.
I loved it too.
Yeah.
I had to go and buy it, actually. We rented it, and then it's like, whoa. So I had to go and buy it on.
Yeah.
Definitely worth owning.
Okay.
They did like a whole animated stuff feature if you buy the DVD based on the Black Freighter.
Yeah.
With the comic that the kids are reading like throughout it. In the actual graphic novel, there's like more reference to it, but pretty cool, man. Good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. But yeah, back to zombie. Let's talk about zombie.
Well, veer off zombies a little bit and touch on something we talked about off the air. Fear Street. It's a Netflix original movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I know Craig hasn't, and I know Matt hasn't.
I've seen all three.
Okay, I watched all three of them last night. I don't want to spoil anything or give anything away, but I want to try to convince Craig here because he has only seen maybe 20 minutes of the first one.
20 minutes of the first one, maybe. Yeah.
And I can understand his stance on it. What is current like?
It's just not an interesting story to me. Like I've heard there was good kills and everything, but the story just did not interest me. I was kind of like it was kind of like a modern day like even teenier Scream. You know what I mean? Like to me, anyways. It's just like the perception I got.
I can understand that, but after watching all three of them and then reading about like the source, because I never read Fear Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that makes sense because it's geared towards teenagers. But
yeah,
for me, I want to tell you this, so you give it a fair shake. It's redeemed by the third movie, the storyline. I think. I like the twist.
Do I get to chime in after?
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to hear other people.
I want you to finish first.
No, that's all I wanted to say. In my opinion, I feel it's redeemed by the third one.
Okay.
Order do you watch it?
So,
Chronological order?
Like, kind of going back to the last segment and talking about comic books, have any of you read Nailbiter by Image Comics?
No, that I haven't
heard of it, but I haven't seen it. No.
Okay. It is a book about a place called, it's a city. Oh my gosh, now I can't remember the name of the city. It's a little city in Oregon. And it's about this whole town and about how it has bred serial killers. And they pay attention to all these killers that have come up through the years and this and that. And they thrive on it. There's a store about them. You can buy things relating to these different killers and this and that. Watching the very first movie kind of felt like that because it all ties back into the town itself of Shadyside, you know, and it looked like Buckaroo. That's the name of the city.
Okay.
It was a very like, you know, Buckaroo, Oregon breeds these serial killers, and that's the whole deal, right? So the first one kind of plays off and kind of sets that up. The second one just goes back in the 80s and is a Jason movie 100%. It's a Friday the 13th, a bunch of people dying during the game. Fantastic.
Very good slasher movie.
100%. That's all that it is. It ties in a little bit to the lore, and that's fine, but it's an 80s slasher movie.
Yeah.
And then you get to the third one.
Sprinkled in here and there.
Yeah. The third one takes you all the way back to the very beginning in 1666 and starts the story. So you kind of get what was starting in the first one, kind of progresses to the second one. You feel the story. I thought the third one was going to be all about that, but it really wasn't. Only about half of the movie was back in 1666, and then it comes right back to the 90s to tie everything together and like finish everything.
Yeah.
So there were definitely high parts, and there was a lot of there was a good amount of like, I'm bored, I'm gonna look at my phone.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
it's worth going through all three movies.
Yeah. I'll give it a fair shake.
Yeah. You know, everyone's got a good 6
their
hours
own
in their day if they figure it out. So might as well
You
use
had
it.
time to kill.
Yep.
But overall, I feel they're pretty decent for what they were.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, as soon as you said 80s slasher, that's what I was born and raised on. So
Yeah, that's definitely the feel of the second one. Your classic 70s, 80s slasher movie.
yeah, Matt knows, he's smiling.
Yeah.
That I can relate to.
Soundtrack does it have? Is it like a Stranger Things synth-wavy soundtrack?
Yeah.
Almost. The 90s one was straight grunge. The first movie was all grunge music, and then the second, they try and go with the theme. The second one was more of your 80s style, but the third one, I honestly didn't pay attention to the music a lot. I feel like they use like symphony kind of stuff for the 1600.
The third one was scored more or less to like fit the theme of the movie because what music do you remember from the 1660s?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The first one was definitely like Nirvana and fucking like Man in the Box and like shit like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second one, you hear a lot of like late 70s stuff.
It tried pretty hard.
78.
Actually, like
definitely not a Turbo Kid soundtrack for any means, but yeah.
No, the Matos. That was one of the things about Zombie that I loved that I forgot that I liked was the soundtrack. I love that era of
Zombie did have
that
great
John Carpenter Goblin kind of vibe.
Yeah.
The guy that did the soundtrack for Zombie, Fabio Frizzi, he was like buddies with Goblin. So
was he?
It has that, yeah, and it's got that cool like late 70s, early 80s like mood, synth sound. I love that.
Yeah, the fact that like companies like Waxworks and things like that are putting out soundtracks for these movies and putting out Goblin releases, and doing them for the movies, it's fantastic for nerds like this.
Yeah.
No, so Waxworks is awesome, man. They do like the most like random B movie soundtracks that you would never think would get a release.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love that. But yeah, I actually like Fabio Frizzi, the guy that did the soundtrack. He did some other stuff with, I think he did the Beyond and City of the Dead with Lucio Fulci too, and those movies like had such like that synthy kind of soundtrack that it's so much of the movie, so much a part of it that I think it even influenced Day of the Dead, because the soundtrack to Day of the Dead, I don't remember who did it, but it was like definitely like had that kind of Italian horror vibe.
Yeah, it did. And totally in like the 80s version, like that little
I love it.
Yep.
So good.
Speaking of Romero, have any of you watched the Lost film that just came out, The Amusement Park?
Yep. I loved it. I loved it.
Super interesting. He got hired to do a PSA about, the elderly, really. And he put out this movie, and it was almost an hour long, like give or take.
Yeah.
And it was too much. They were like, this is more graphic and stuff than we expected it to be. And it literally just shows how the elderly is used and abused and not cared for and overlooked. This was in the 70s when it was done.
Yeah.
And so the movie got shelved for years and years, and Shudder just put it out recently. And I watched it like 3 days ago, and it was kind of hard. There was parts of it where I was like, I could see that like in day-to-day life, just walking around and things like that.
It's a real hit, especially like for people with anxiety and things like that too. You know what I mean? Like this day and age, it's not just a hit on the elderly. It's like a hit on social anxiety, and like that glimpse of death that they show when those bikers are like kicking them around, that sticks with me still, even though it was like 0.2 seconds. The image that he used sticks with me still to this moment.
It was 100% a Romero movie that everyone needs to see at one point in time.
For sure.
It's not the same feel that you would think of when you think of Romero, and it was extremely impactful.
Yeah.
That people need to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta check that out. That's like how he bankrolled Night of the Living Dead, was because he was doing like industrial movies and PSAs.
Yeah.
Wow. That's how he cut his teeth.
Yep.
Damn.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's an eye opener. It is.
When did he shoot it? Like in between Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, or?
Yeah, I think it was like 72. I think it was released or something, or made.
Something like that, yeah.
But he actually used like people from insane asylums and like the elderly, like like homeless people and everything to fill in the cast of characters.
Yeah, every single older person there was from an actual facility of some sort.
Yeah.
And they all mentioned that it was like the most fun they had in the last 20 or 30 years of their life, because they got
Yeah.
to do something. They weren't stuck in a home, they weren't stuck in a room, you know, that kind of thing. And so it was a big deal for them. And then it just never did anything. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Busy.
I mean, even the beginning of it, like when he first walks in, and I don't want to spoil it, but like you're just like, all right, this is gonna get like real unsettling real quick because it's a Romero movie and I see it already, and it did.
Yeah, I enjoyed the intro a lot because
Yeah.
literally the actor is just telling you like, hey, I'm in my 70s and I'm an actor and I do these type of things, and
Yeah.
everyone else in this film is literally not an actor. Like he was the actor of the movie.
Yeah.
Everyone else is being, you know, used from all these different types of things. And you know, once the movie actually starts, it's just him talking to himself for the first 10 or so minutes, and it all ties back into the very end, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and when he's like, "You won't like it out there." Oh man.
What's it
It's a
called?
weird one. Everyone needs to see it at least once.
Yeah,
in
for
their
sure.
life,
For sure.
What's it called?
What's the title?
The amusement park.
The amusement park. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, boys, we really appreciate you guys coming on. We don't want to
Yeah,
take
for
too
sure.
much of the time.
Thank you for having us, man. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, it has been a fun one. It really has.
Been great.
It's been a great conversation. You guys do know a fuckload about comics. Oh.
Hashtag sploosh.
It's probably a full episode there whenever you guys are ready to have us back.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime.
12-parter.
Anytime, just let us know. Or
I love it, man. I'll talk about it anytime.
yeah,
You got
we'd
any
love to
more
have you
trivia
back.
Any more trivia questions? I can look one up. Why don't you guys go ahead and plug what you guys got coming up real quick while I do that.
Oh, here you go. I'll plug some.
There it is.
You
got them there?
two.
That's not the
maybe
most recent thing, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the other one. Dang it. I don't have it. Okay, here's our second most recent album. It's called The Voices of a Dead Generation.
Nice.
You can find it on our Bandcamp. And then our most recent is not here. It is somewhere. Oh, yeah. Nope. Yeah. This is our most recent album called Into the Abyss. And
That's
for
awesome.
people that are into horror, it's got kind of a Lovecraftian theme to it. Here, I'll show you the cool colors.
A comic book artist drew the cover. Who was that, Ralph?
Oh, that's
Alejandro
awesome.
Miguel, who is also, he's doing his own crowdfunded comic called Long Harbor. So when we were talking earlier about like doing Kickstarters and stuff like crowdfunded comic,
Awesome.
he's doing one that's like a very like, it's kind of like, it seems like an aquatic or like a, you know, like a maritime thing, kind of a John Carpenter thing, very like Lovecraftian, you know, like weird zombie reanimated kind of monstery things. But I reached out to him and asked him to do the cover because it kind of fit with the theme of the album.
Mm.
And he did it, and it was cool. It was the first time we ever did anything that was outside album artist. So. And then
But that wasn't the most recent thing. Before you start, that wasn't the most recent thing we put out. We have put out a 7-inch record after that new record. These are old songs on this 7-inch, but it is the most recent pressing that we've done with Uncommon Interests, my apologies, out in Florida. We released 2 songs, Eaters of the Dead and another version of Eaters of the Dead. So I guess it's technically one song. But there are different versions. There's different singers on each version. One of them was used for a movie called Cannibal Flesh Riot by Chris Grimley. He's a fantastic illustrator. He's done tons of children's books, horror children's books. But yeah, he did a movie called Cannibal Flesh Riot. And so you can find that song on here. But Uncommon Interests on Bandcamp may still have a few of these. So if they do grab one, there's not a lot left if there is any.
Yeah, I think they might actually be sold out, but yeah. Craig, the guy that runs Uncommon Interest, he does like a whole bunch of horror punk bands and stuff too. So if you're into bands that are in like, you know, have a bit of a horror vibe to them, check out his Bandcamp.
Sure.
Okay, so our trivia question before we jump off here with you guys.
All right.
What real life interviews inspired the relationship between Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter?
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know any of the names. It was the Green River Killer and some cop.
No.
Jeffrey Dahmer?
Robert Keppel and Ted Bundy.
Oh, Ted Bundy. Interesting. Cool. All
Yeah.
right. Good question.
So yeah.
Huh.
Get some stuff.
Yep. I didn't know that either. So
I've been watching a lot of Mindhunter for the past
That's
couple
from
of
the
days,
movie.
and
I'm so
slowly
stupid.
learning
Nice.
Yeah.
more about these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just recited the movie. I'm horrible at trivia.
That's a good guess.
It's a great wooden ship.
Probably a fake horror. Real horror, I'm not very good at.
Yeah.
Right. If it's not published in a film as fiction, we don't know.
Fair
Monster and arrow syrup with food dye.
Fair enough. Well, boys, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Thank you for having us. It was awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I know it's late where you guys are at, so thank you for staying.
We're gonna keep
Yeah.
going with it, I think, actually.
Yeah, we're gonna go a little bit more and
talk about some Game of Thrones.
Enjoy.
All right.
Thanks, fellas. It was awesome.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Yep.
Yep. Adios.
Now you can construct what may be the ultimate robot monsters.
Robostructs.
Each sold separately, batteries not included. Then you can unleash the power of Robostructs.
Robostructs.
But who could have known these robot monsters would be this incredibly powerful?
Robostructs.
Only you can build them. Only you can control them. Or can you?
Robostructs.
Robostructs robot monsters are sold separately and ready to construct. New from Tomy.
I'm John Madden for CBS Video Games. I've got a great money-back offer for you. But first, watch this exciting competition in the CBS Video Games Challenge of Champions. Today's challengers, arcade aces, Tony Sarkis against Ray Johnson. The game, Wizard of War, new from CBS Video Games. The object, defeat the wizard, his henchmen, and your opponent. Tony hits one. He misses Ray. Ray fires at the wizard. Wizard's at Tony. Ray Johnson wins. Wizard of War, new from CBS Video Games.
Are you up to the challenge?
You've seen how challenging Wizard of War is. Now we'll bet your money back that Wizard is tougher than you are. Buy it, and after 3 days, if you think otherwise, return it to your participating dealer with your receipt and get your money back. How can we make this money back offer? Because we know how tough this game is. But maybe you're not up to the challenge.
Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back for Game of Thrones.
Thanks again to Order of the Fly. They were
Yeah.
fucking awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It's a little bummer that Joe had to dip out a little early, but
Yeah, you all right?
Yep.
He's a trooper.
That was me a couple weeks ago, so I can't really
Yeah.
rag on him too much.
Yep.
But yeah, Game of Thrones. Let's talk a little bit about this. We've been wanting to do this for a while.
We have. Since I finally gave it a fair shake, and I am hooked now.
Season 1.
Season 1.
Let's just ups and downs. Let's hear them, Matt.
So I didn't watch season 1 when it was on real time, but what amazes me the most about season 1, watching it 7 seasons late, is remembering the water cooler talk about season 1 when it was happening and not knowing. And let's be honest, I didn't give a shit. Like, there's no magic in this. It's not a fucking fantasy story. Get the fuck out of here. But then when you're watching it and it gets to, we'll call it the Ned episode. Like I told you, James, you can watch that scene 50, 100, 1,000 times, and you're going to think it's going to end different every single time.
Yeah.
You know it's coming. You're like,
Yeah, I watched it today. I know. Yeah.
It's going to change. It's not going to be the same as every other time I've seen it.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, the brilliance of HBO keeping Martin on for that first season, spot on. But also the way that Martin wrote the characters in the book and the build up to that made it transferable to the screen. I don't think without it being a book first, they were going to get that right. Not a chance. And then when it happens, you're like, what other fucking story on earth ever does the guy take out the coolest fucking character right off the bat?
Yeah.
Never.
No.
Like, I would defy you to find somebody who was into any other family other than the Starks in season 1. You can't.
No.
Right? The other ones look weak, stupid, or you haven't met him yet.
Yeah. Yep.
Or evil, right?
Yeah.
Who pushes a fucking kid out the window.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you learn who you love and hate within the first season on that aspect, at least.
Joffrey.
You know, like
Joffrey.
Yeah. Fucking little. Yeah.
Well, and to expand on your point, Craig, you learn within 30 seconds of meeting each character where they are.
Yeah. True.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And if you don't form an opinion, I think it's safe to say that character is probably going to die within an episode or two.
Yeah. True.
And gory as fuck, too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one thing that attracts me is the gore factor to it. Like, it's not like you've ever seen, because it does, like, they make everything seem so real, even though it is like high fantasy, like you were saying with magic and everything. But they make it so real for the time, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you can really feel yourself there.
Oh, the no magic thing isn't an indictment of Martin. It's more, that's my hang up for fantasies.
Yeah,
I need to see that to give a shit.
Yeah.
But what happened was somebody said something, and so I went and read The Hedge Knight, because it wasn't the show, but it was the author, and I could kind of stick my toes in. Amazing fucking book. I've talked about it on my segment. Duncan the Tall is one of my favorite fucking characters, and they say his name. You would have heard it by now when Joffrey was looking in the book and he was talking shit to Jaime.
Yeah,
he's like, Sir Duncan the Tall.
Yeah.
And then I had to watch it, because the other thing was a buddy of, I'm not going to say anything because it will fuck it up if I tell you, but he said 2 words, and I'm like, all right, I gotta fucking watch it now.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a while to get into it too, because I didn't have HBO. That was one thing, and then another thing, I just never got around to it.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got HBO, they were already 6 seasons in, and so okay, I'll just binge watch all of it and then catch up, because they were in between seasons at the time. So I did that, and then wow. Okay, anyway, but yeah, what got me to watch it was my wife said to me, she goes, look, you like blood and guts, you like tits, and you like dragons. All 3 of those are in this show. And I go, you talk to me into it. You know, it's like when somebody sets a joint in front of you and says, don't smoke that.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, you can't do that to a pothead.
When you say it like that, there's something to be said for being into the show as it's happening, when they're not marathon releasing episodes. And I was trying to think, the only show I ever did that with was Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Where I was right up to the minute all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember going into work and you're talking about Team Walt, Team Hank, blah, blah, blah. Like, only things that people who watch the show would know. And with the Game of Thrones, when, how do I say this? When season 6 ended the way it did, and I heard everybody start lathering up.
Yeah.
Then you're like, really, over that? That doesn't, out of context, this is ridiculous. It's like they've all taken bath salts and hit themselves in the face with something. And so then season 7 comes out and I've got to buy them all on fucking iTunes. So I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 days straight of just episode. Because once I knew what was going to be at the beginning of season 7, it was like, okay, I can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I can kind of agree with you on the fantasy aspect, though. Like,
but that's the D&D in me. Like, Martin's a fantastic writer, and I don't give him enough credit. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff going into that.
Yeah.
But to me, it would fit more in the alternate universe historical piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's kind of a period piece if you think about it.
It is, and I think that's what attracts me to it. Is like
a
you know, yeah, I'm not into like high fantasy as much, but I'm really into the story because it's just that well written,
Yeah.
And
you hear legends like of knights from England battling dragons and shit like that. So it's like that's what I mean when I say that. You know what I mean? It's a historical drama from a alternate reality.
He's made no bones about it. He didn't create the story.
Right.
He painted it up a bit, but it's the War of the Roses out of English history.
Yeah.
And what he did is he added like ridiculous. He added multiple dimensions and layers to these characters and took the context of human history out of it and replaced it with a mythology and a lore that, I mean, if you read the story about George Martin, he started by telling it to a bunch of turtles, and then it turned into this crazy rich world. And it's ridiculous. It's comparable to, I mean, this is my hot take, and a bunch of people will chew me up over it, but this is what puts him in the conversation with Tolkien. His world building is phenomenal.
Yeah, you get the same kind of vibe from it.
Yeah.
Well, and he put it, you feel it because he cared when he did it. It wasn't like
yeah, that's what I mean. There's a lot of feeling, and it's so well written, and you can feel the emotion in the writing, even in the TV form.
Well, and where the TV show falls short, but you feel what it was going for in the book is Martin doesn't write from a character's point of view. There's an Arya chapter written entirely from Arya's perspective, Sansa, Joffrey, Cersei, the Hound, or whoever, right? And so in the show, when they focus on that character, it's because that's the chapter they're starting on.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that's why it swirls, like it feels organic, I'd say, until season 5. And then it's just open your mouth and take it all.
Yeah, because that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
They didn't give a fuck about the story.
But they just want to, move it.
Yeah.
That's why just kind of like,
Well, and it's not a coincidence that that's when he stopped being involved, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because people were bitching about him because he wasn't done with the books, and it's like you can't rush.
Well, and I think that's why they forced the show so much too, is they thought they could push the book out. Like I think HBO thought they could force the book out of Martin by forcing the show ahead of where he finished.
And he said, "Hell no, that's not how this."
Oh, he dug in the whole time. It was not even. A lot of people say he said some things. Never promised nothing.
He just didn't.
No, of course not. And I wouldn't have either. Every day he waits to publish those books, they're worth more.
Yeah.
And especially if
the businessman, he knows that.
If he rips up his outline and goes way off script, dude, especially if he waits until after the spin-offs, the dude's going to make all his HBO money, and then he's going to go finish his books and be like, fuck you for fucking my shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or whatever, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because I like it when fat guys win. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
He's an underdog, man. He's a total nerd. He when you listen to him talk, he doesn't put on airs. He's not full of shit. When he interviewed Stephen King, did you have you seen any of that or even heard of it? The first question out of his mouth is he goes, he's like, how do you write so fast?
Teach me your ways.
Well, seriously, like Stephen King puts out 5 or 6 novels a year.
Yeah.
Or was.
All the guy does. I don't think he sleeps.
Yeah.
And I mean, another guy was R.A. Salvatore, like as a modern writer. He wrote, well, you can see some of them. Like, he probably wrote half of the books that are there, all the hardcover. And he wrote from 1986 to today, he's written 36 books about one character.
Wow.
And like full-length novels. They're not graphic. There's no pictures, none of that shit. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
I love him to death. I mean, in all my segments when I talk about characters, I shit all over this dude's characters because I don't know. I think he'd find it funny, but
okay. I want to do a little I don't know. I don't know what to call it, but top 2 characters from season 1. Your own opinion.
my answers jumped right into my head.
Krager?
Top 2 in season 1. I would honestly have to say Ned and Arya so far from season 1. Like those were the 2 I were like, man. And then, you know, they robbed us, but yeah, that's who I actually related to the most. And the imp.
Where do you see yourself dying? Getting a blowjob when I'm 80 years old. No, we have one of the same ones. I'm all about Host Stark. Ned's my boy. You get to see him in a different light later, and you're gonna like that.
Yeah.
I also like that because in opposition to the other character, Ned's a quiet guy. He's a great swordsman. He's a great leader. He's the unlikely heir to Winterfell because he's the youngest, the second youngest boy, and then the youngest boy fucks off to the wall because why not? And he's honorable. He's a great dad, and well, I mean, as great as a guy can be in Winterfell, I suppose.
Yeah.
And he thinks. He's not impulsive. It's not brash and drunk and shit. That's where he's entirely different. My other favorite character, even though he's not really that good of a character, is Robert Baratheon. I love King Robert. When you get to hear of his exploits in the books, he was a hell of a jouster and a sword fighter. And just before this show starts in this world, there's a rebellion in Westeros, and the dude comes off the throne and fucking literally leads the charge. And I love that. I love leaders that are like that.
Yeah.
And he's an asshole. Like he's a lovable asshole.
Yeah, he is.
Absolutely.
How about you, Jameser?
Okay. Now, from the beginning, the first time I ever watched this show, I said, I don't care what this character does, how soon he dies, if he dies. Tyrion. Just because I love Peter Dinklage. Anything that man does is gold. Don't care.
Yeah.
Tyrion Lannister. And then my other one is Bran. Because I don't know why, but like after he comes back from falling out of the tower, and then you just see something there. I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, hard to describe. I don't know. He's a very interesting character in the beginning.
For me, it didn't matter if they were interesting or not. If their last name was Stark, I didn't give a shit. They're the best all day. In hindsight, after watching the show 10, 12 times, my favorite characters from the first season are Tyrion because of the way the actor developed. Not necessarily the character. The character was the imp the whole time.
Yeah.
But you see a big transformation in the way Peter Dinklage plays it throughout the series. And he's fucking brilliant.
Fucking A.
Then the guy I like, again, this is hindsight 2020, is Maester Aemon.
Yeah.
And that becomes more obvious later though. When he tells the story about how he got to the wall, that does it.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah. Can't.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That's why we just nope. Season 1, James. Season 1.
And that's what makes it tricky too, right?
Yeah.
But you now you made me think of a bunch of questions that wouldn't make sense to Craig right now. So, who's your favorite person to hate, Craig?
You already know.
Yeah.
That little bastard.
I think Joffrey is everyone's favorite to hate, in all honesty. Like you said, that kid will never work again.
And that's the pity of it, because that's the job he did, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
So
he
he's
did
a
such an
great
awesome
actor.
job at making you hate him. Yeah.
He did what he got paid to do.
Yeah.
He was fantastic at it. Like, that's Draco Malfoy level hate.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And actually, I'd even say worse, because Joffrey was such a dark little shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rip his head off.
It wasn't as innocent either. You know, you were dealing with like lives of people and not just like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
But here, Craig, I think I thought of a way to say it that doesn't wreck it. Be prepared to understand that that is not the character you're going to hate the most. I can guarantee it.
We're calling it right now, and I am 100% on that side here.
Yeah.
And it's not just one other one. There's a bunch of characters you're gonna find that you hate more than Joffrey. Well, there is the one. Like, it's, if you watched it real time when this guy shows up or gal, don't fuck it up. Oh, dude. Never seen me get so emotional over a TV show.
Yeah.
See this person, you're gonna be like, "Yep, that's the one."
The other point about there being more characters you're gonna hate more than Joffrey is it doesn't feel like it's not a rerun. It's not just Joffrey over and over again and different people. They're deep characters with their own motivations. Some of them are dark as fuck. Some of them, they're not. They're not bad, but they're just in opposition to who you like.
Yeah.
And you really fucking hate.
Yeah, and you will. And or when something good happens to him, you're like,
nope.
That. And if something bad happens to him, you're like,
yeah.
You're like, good. Bring him up by his balls. Fuck him.
But that's what I liked about. I guess the way I sum up the first season is it's a great fucking kickoff into a show that it shaped the 2010s.
Yeah.
And the ending.
I'm not saying nothing. So I won't shut the fuck up.
Nope. But I figure that was a good little end to our Order of the Fly episode.
Yeah.
We just had a good 20 minutes of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yep.
So we could talk about comic books for like 15 episodes. I could talk about Game of Thrones for fucking ever. Ever.
We can just tag this on to the end of every episode. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't care. We can.
Yep. And not sure what's coming next week, but we'll keep you guys posted as we find out. Until then, this is the Greasy Spoon, the Surly Smurf, and the Mad Mage.
See ya.
For G.I. Joe, thank you for watching. Yeah. I agree.
We at
the Punk Rock Geek Den signing off.
See ya.
Don't dab in my house.
Oh, just look at the fun those kids are having.
I love these sweet, fruity, colorful tricks. Lemony yellow.
I can't stand it.
Orangey orange. Raspberry red. Grapey purple.
I've just got to get some tricks.
The fun part of this complete breakfast.
I know how I'll get some tricks. Just a little paint and there. Please feed the rabbit tricks.
That's strange. I thought tricks were for kids. But it says right here, please feed the rabbit tricks.
Look, he has his bowl and everything. Well, I guess.
Here.
Sweet, colorful, fruity tricks.
I knew it. Please don't feed the animals.
Tricks are so fruity, so colorful, and so much fun, they're made just for us.
Silly rabbit.
Tricks are for kids.
Okay, rabbit feeding time.
Oh, boy.